know, as much as I like all the hypercars and supercars we do, there's really nothing much more fun than driving these things. You know, because if something happens, it's not the end of the world. You can fix it yourself. You get a lot of pride of ownership and workmanship, you know. I mean, I love all the supercars, the P1s and the F1s, but they're sort of out of the realm of the average person to make it better or to fix it. Whereas this thing, you can open the hood and get in there and change plugs and do stuff. Go out and test it, see how it feels. Try a hotter plug, try a colder plug. You know, they're just fun to work on. Welcome to the episode of Jay Leno's Garage, the car featuring today my 1974 Triumph TR6. This is pretty much the end of the line for the British sports car industry. They kind of went out with a bang. This is a pretty good car. You know, my favorite Triumph was the 64th, the Michelada bodied one. Michelada, I think that's how you say it, with the IRS and had the independent suspension, all kinds of trick stuff. And when I was a kid, there were so many accessories you could buy. Fog lights and racing gloves and, you know, the string back gloves, all this kind of stuff. This car was, I think, old-fashioned even when it came out in '74. The car that kind of did it in was the Datsun 240Z. That was a modern sports car, you know, all this kind of stuff, all kinds of trick stuff. You could get roll-up, well, this has roll-up window. I mean, it's good. It's the final iteration of it. It just still feels like a classic British sports car from the 60s. When you drive other cars from the 70s, they feel contemporary. This still had a lot of old-fashionedness to it, but it worked to its advantage because it kind of had a lusty engine, 2.5 liter 6, which was a big motor, 150 horsepower, which doesn't sound like much today, but these didn't weigh much. Triumphs are always a bit more powerful than the MG and some of the other cars. I was always a Triumph fan. My brother had one. I had an MG I bought for $600 when I was in high school, and it was like a really nice car too. He got for $600. The way I came about this one, I'm kind of like you know, Mia Farrow would adopt all those children, and Shah McLaughlin saves the pets. Well, I'm kind of that way with the cars. A guy calls me up and he says, "Hey, I want to sell you my Triumph TR6. Well, I don't really need it now." You know. And he gave me a price, and it seemed a little high. And I said, "Well, no, thanks anyway. I appreciate it." And he goes, "Hey, wait, if I give it to you, will you take it?" Yeah, sure, okay. All right, so that's what he did. He gave it to me.
You know, we acquire cars in interesting ways. A lot of times people have a car they love, but the engine's blown or it's in sad shape. They don't know what to do with it. So they called me and asked me if I wanted it. That was the case with this 1974 TR6 Triumph. The body's all there, pretty nice shape, not too bad, but the engine just needed everything. Valves were bent, the cam was worn out. Yeah. So we pulled the engine, went through the whole thing. Putting it back to stock, did a slight touch-up under the hood here with matching paint. So it's going to be a great car. It's going to be a great runner, a great car to just take out in the hills and drive around or run some errands with. It's not going to be like a, you know, 100-point restoration or anything like that, but it'll all be stock. And, well, it's running now. We just got a few more things to do with this. And we'll do a full, you know, road test and everything on this one when it's done.
Whatever problems you had with a British sports car, this had it. The people that have these cars tend to fall in love with them and overlook their faults. You know, it's kind of like a bad marriage, you know. They will give it one more try, and I think he was just pretty much giving up. When we got it back here, it ran, but barely. The body was kind of in bad shape, had the big goofy rubber bumpers on the front, you know, those big overriders. This is the original color. You know, my initial thought was, let's make something we can use as a parts car. We'll do a quickie restoration on it. Well, one thing leads to another. Well, let's bring George. George, come on. This is George Swift, our long-suffering mechanic. George is everything from steam cars to Triumphs. He totally rebuilt the engine on this and did a wonderful job. Let's pull this. Let's open this.
You forgot to pick on my beard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's handsome.
I can't help it.
Give it a pull. There we go. Well, there's your engine compartment. You know, the idea behind this was, like I said, just to do a quickie restoration. Then you'd find something, okay, we got to fix that. And eventually we wind up pulling the motor and going through the whole thing. We had a blown head gasket, as I remember.
It had a couple burnt valves, and that's what I thought. We're going to do the head, boom, that'll be quick.
Right.
No, it had a burnt piston. This took 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That ain't bad. And everything was available at Moss Motors, which makes it easy.
Yeah.
Just boom, ordered pistons. The machine shop was quick, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. Then once the engine was back in, you said, oh, we should have painted it. So either Per was gone or he was working on something else, and you said, have Isaac paint it. And he did a beautiful job.
Yeah, Isaac did a beautiful job, yeah.
Yeah, it looks
Isaac,
great.
Our newest employee, and he really hard worker. He did good on it. I think they produced 93,000 of these. 83,000 they exported. Almost the whole thing went to America. The thing that kind of trips it up, it has all these goofy 70s safety features. The key is way under the steering column. You've got to go under here like this, and it has the kind of clunky looking seat belts so they can click, click. It's like hooking a battery charger in. Click, click, you snap it in there. And it's got the headrest. But it still has the classic 60s kind of styling and look. And they're so much fun to drive. They are lusty, as the English say. You put your foot in it and it makes all the right noises. A lot of fun to drive. These are what sports cars were all about when I was a kid. MGs, Austin Healey's, it was all British. And the 240Z came in, and that was pretty much the beginning of the downfall. England was plagued with union problems and strikes and just all kinds of things. And it's too bad, too. But the guy I got it from really enjoyed the car. It just overwhelmed him, and it just needed everything. And, there's nothing worse than, a worn-out English sports car. You're just not going to get much money for them. But we decided to paint it back in the original color, this Tahiti blue, I think the name of it was. We got rid of the giant goofy bumpers with the big rubber overriders.
Those are ugly. They're awful.
It is. But it's nice to drive, and it feels classic. I read a couple of road tests where the two cars of this period were the 240Z and the TR6, and although the 240Z was faster, everything, people like this because it felt vintage. It felt like a proper English sports car, big torquey motor, twin Stromberg carburetor. Yeah, it's just a really nice car to drive. It's got this stupid antenna, and having a radio in this is ridiculous. I can't even hear the guy next to me, let alone the radio.
You know what I thought was strange about this car was it could be a 4-speed or it could be 4-speed and overdrive.
Right.
Why wouldn't they just make them all overdrive? This one's a 4-speed,
right,
which makes you want another gear.
Right.
And probably should have done that when we had it apart, but that's a pretty big expense.
Well, the overdrive was an expensive option back in the day.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, well, they should just put it on all the cars. But I guess, if you're on the twisties, you're not going to need overdrive.
Right.
You're going to need a tow truck to get you out of the ditch, but that's about it.
Well, in England, the motorways had just started to become popular. And it's also, you never get out of third gear, let alone fourth gear a lot of times.
Yeah.
So there's not much, like air conditioning. You don't use it that often in England, because we have our giant Optima battery. When you have British Electrics, you want to have a little electricity off to the side, just in case you need it. So that's why we use these. And again, it's kind of old-fashioned. You have discs in the front, drums in the back. By this point, Corvette and everybody else had discs all the way around. So they were trying to save money where they could, and they were built the old-fashioned way, which was labor-intensive and expensive to make, and the Japanese and other companies had new factories and could just produce cars a bit more efficiently. But it's the last of the classic British sports cars, and you really have to drive it to appreciate it, because they are fun to drive. They make all the right noises. The windowsill's not way up here like it is on modern cars. You can sit in it and get the whole greenhouse effect. It's pretty neat. I'm not crazy about the luggage rack, but somebody drilled the holes and put it in, so we put it back on. Were there any other problems, George? We did break. Well, it just needed everything. It was pretty much worn. I mean, it's a 50-year-old car, you know.
No, I mean, everything firewall forward has been done, radiator, the engine, of course. And,
Right.
you know, we always flush the brake system, go over the brakes, engine mounts, trans mounts.
And look at the size of that alternator. It looks like something that you have on a
Yeah.
Peterbilt truck or something.
You see that on a lot of British cars.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing about these things is the 1-2 shift is so close ratio.
Yeah.
It's just really odd to hear this accelerate. It's the only car that, beep, beep, you know, it's like there's very close
Yeah.
ratio.
Yeah.
I had a friend with one of these in the early 80s when I came to California, and I think it's a cool looking car, but this guy was always working on it, and he's just always messing with it.
Yeah.
But it was pretty fast, you know, it was good.
I always remember the president of, I think, BSA motorcycles. They said the average motorcyclist loves nothing more than taking their head off their motorcycle on a Saturday morning and decoking it. No, they don't. They like to ride them. You know, whereas the Japanese were being very efficient and oil tight, and these had all the usual problems, the Lucas Electric and all those kind of things. But still, they're wonderful to drive. People that love them put up with the problems. You know, I sent a truck for it. We picked this thing up in Wisconsin. Probably put more in it than it's worth, but that's okay. I'm not going to sell it. It makes me smile when I drive it. Well, look, let's shut the hood, take it for a ride, and give you an idea of what we're talking about. You have to reach down, get the key. Got a nice sound. And continue motoring. It's got a great sound. And of course, hanging your elbow out on the windowsill here. Is this a windowsill? I guess it is. But just having your arm, like, you know, modern cars, that's what I hate about the late model GM Camaros. The arm is way up here. It's like, no room at all. Oh, there you go. Nicely laid out dashboard, speedometer, tach, all the gauges you need right in front of you. You got real wood here. Yeah, it's not plastic. It's kind of cool. Vinyl, no leather, because this was not an expensive, it was not a cheap car, but it was sort of below Jaguar. You had these, and then you had the Jag, and then above Jag you had Aston Martin, and you know. So there's a sort of pecking order like GM. But as I said, they built 93,000 in '74 and shipped 83,000 of them to America. So people like these. There was still a big demand for them. The thing that really killed these cars was the smog and government regulations and trying to get an airbag in here. It really does need an extra gear. We probably should have put an overdrive in it, but you know, I don't drive this to Vegas or San Francisco. It's just something to run around the hills in, and which it's perfect for. You know, Americans forget what a really light sports car is like. Although this is not as light as a Lotus, it's still pretty light compared to any American equivalent. Make you smile. And the fun thing is you can use all the power all the time. Just put your foot in it all the time. I'm not even sure what the top speed on this is. I think if you could get 115 miles an hour out of it, that'd be pretty good. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know. It's just not that kind of vehicle. But when I lived in New England with these cars, in my MG, you put the windows up and you put the top. Oh, it's cozy inside. The heaters work pretty good. Cars are so good. 100 miles an hour feels like 40. This 40 miles an hour feels like 100, and that's what makes it fun to drive. I feel like I'm going fast, but I'm really not going any faster than anybody else in traffic. Much about the TR7, the wedge shape one. I never liked the look of it. I like the look of this one better. And of course the one previous to this I liked the most of all, but it's not a bad looking car. I just hate all the safety switches, you know, it's all big rounded rubber knobs. Yeah, I like the old, you know, the sort of rocker switches and all that kind of thing. I think it's hysterical as a radio. You couldn't hear it. It could be on now, you wouldn't know. Let me see. Can't hear it anyway. I'm guessing most of these probably came here to California and anywhere else, because it really is a perfect California car. And as George said, everything is available for this car. This is kind of like the small block Chevy of England, you know. There were so many accessories, so many independent guys building stuff. You know, Weber conversions and turbochargers, superchargers. I think Datsun used to make a supercharger of these things. So you can really have a good time with them. And SCCA racing was hugely popular in the 60s and 70s. I mean, this could have been the Miata, you know? Miata was a copy of the Lotus. But they just built it the way Lotus should have built it. And that's why the Miata became so popular. At a place called Foreign Motors in Boston when I was in college, and we had foreign cars. That's what they called them. We had BMW, we had Mercedes-Benz, we had Rolls-Royce, we had Bentley, we had Citroën, and we took a lot of these in trade. You know, you had a young guy, had the sports car, gets married, got the family. So the 2002 was the perfect replacement for this. You could put 4 people in it. It was reliable, it was dependable, you know, it was a closed car, it was a stick, it handled, and they did a lot of advancement on it with the TII and eventually a turbocharged model. That was a great car, but if you were a young guy and you got married and you're starting a family, you would have traded something like this in for the BMW. Although this was a 6, the BMW was a 4-cylinder. But they had about the equivalent horsepower. But you know, it really does make you feel good when you drive it. Very responsive. Plenty of power. Yeah, government regulations are what really killed off these cars. Because like I said, they imported 83,000 of them in '74. But upcoming emissions were getting tighter and tighter, especially in California. You had to have crash standards. You had to have those big, giant, goofy bumpers on the front, and it just strangled the engines. You know. This had redline tires on it, which actually they came with that. As I remember seeing them back in the day, and thought they looked kind of cool. I remember the GTO had them, the American GTO, the Pontiac, and that's why I put them on this. It's a comfortable car. You can take a trip in it. One of my buddies, he drove one from Rhode Island to Los Angeles and made it all the way. There you go. but they're pretty easy to work on. You saw them when we opened the hood. The distributor's right there, the carburetor's right there. Everything's easily accessible. You can change plugs in 20 minutes, no problem, not even that. You know, so they were eminently tunable. But you know, these are the kind of roads you would have driven on in England when this car was built. Fast 2-lane roads. You know, the motorways had just started to be introduced in England in the late 60s and early 70s. The idea of running, you know, 80, 90 miles an hour, just people didn't do it. It was all little back roads and side streets. And this would have been a highway in England. This is pretty much the top of the line for Triumph. They had the Spitfire, that was the next level down. And those are kind of cool. I like those. And they made a few sedans and things, but those never did well against the American compacts. But you know, when you get into this in 1974, it feels like something from 1964. And that's what makes it charming now. You know, back in the time when you're competing against the 240Z and cars like that, it did seem a bit old-fashioned. But would I rather have this than a 74 240Z? Yeah, I think I would. It's convertible. It just feels more vintage. That's because it is. But I'm in 4th gear now, and I don't feel the need for another gear on this road because I'm really only going 50 or 60 miles an hour, you know. I think when if you get on the 210 or the 5 or some highway where people are running 80, 85, then you're gonna feel like the engine's kind of working too hard. But for around town, it's really perfect. You know, it's a great car. You know, as much as I like the Mustangs and you know, the big muscle cars, there's a charm to this. Like I said, you can just keep your foot in it all day long and use it all the time, all the power. You know, as much as I like all the hypercars and supercars we do, there's really nothing much more fun than driving these things. You know, because if something happens, it's not the end of the world. You can fix it yourself. You get a lot of pride of ownership and workmanship, you know. I mean, I love all the supercars, the P1s and the F1s, but they're sort of out of the realm of the average person to make it better or to fix it, you know. You just have to deal all the time. Whereas this thing, you can open the hood and get in there and change plugs and do stuff. Go out and test it, see how it feels. Try a hotter plug, try a colder plug. You know, they're just fun to work on. I mean, it's a great car for someone, if you want to teach your son or daughter how to do mechanics, how to work on a car. And as I said, a lot of fun to drive. Red line is just about $6,000. I shifted about 5,700 on this thing. I don't want to risk blowing it up. But George did a nice job putting it together. Okay, it's all stock, nothing tricky here, no custom pistons or anything of that nature, just whatever it had. And it's fine. It works fine. I just wonder how many of these are sitting in garages around the country just waiting to be fixed. Like this one, a guy, I don't think he could bring himself to part with it, even though it had a blown head gasket and all kinds of other problems. So when I finished it, I took pictures of it and sent it to him, and he was pleased that it's gone to a good home, you know. Every stoplight you meet somebody that has an experience with one of these. Their uncle had one, their father, their sister, somebody had one, and you just get conversations going. It doesn't happen that often with a Prius. I love this seatbelt. Yeah, it's going to save my life, yeah. But as I said, if you're on a tight budget and, you know, you can pick these up still fairly reasonable. The Spitfires, I think, are even cheaper. I mean, they used to be really cheap. Now everything's getting expensive, but everything's still available. As I said, Moss Motors, they have every part you need for these, whatever you need. And I think there'll be parts for years and years to come. Because, as I said, just in '74 alone, they shipped 83,000 of them here. I'm not how many of those are still running, but now this one is. So I hope you enjoy this look at sort of sensible motoring on a budget. You know, you can have a lot of fun with these kind of cars. In some cases, more fun than even something that's hugely expensive and you're worried about all the time. So, hey, I'll see you guys next week and we'll have something else.